All right, everybody, welcome. It is April 2nd. This is Michael Watson. This is the IACT IMDHA Presenters Series. I am coming to you live from sunny Florida, where I mentioned earlier it is a pleasant 90 degrees today. We're all getting ready for the Hypno Expo on May 19th through the 21st, which also has some pre- and post-conference programs the days before and after that you're really going to want to include in your conference registration. We've been talking to the folks who are presenting those special programs for the last 11 weeks. Tonight is our 12th, and then we have just a few more to go. In a little while, we'll be talking with Shawn Carson, Sarah Carson, and Jess Marion about the Heart of Ericksonian Hypnosis, and I will be introducing them shortly. So if you are a member of IACT or IMDHA, you probably already received your conference catalog, so you might have had a chance to look over the programs. And once you've decided which ones you're interested in, then go ahead and get your registration taken care of. You can get all the details and you can register online at www.hypnoexpo2017.com, the website for all things conference related. Tonight's program is being recorded and it will be posted online tomorrow. You can find it at that same website, hypnoexpo2017.com. At the top of the page, you just pull down the media tab and you can open up the Hypnocaster, where you will find a list of all of the recordings that we've done in this series. You can also find them under the conference tab, where you'll find teleconferences. And for members, you can also find them on the Mind Matters forum. There are CEUs available to you for being here with us tonight, so claim yours by going to the website of either IACT or IMDHA, whichever one you're a member of, or both if that's the case, and just log in with your user ID and your password. You will be directed to a page where you can list your CEUs, so you'll get an hour for tonight just by letting them know that you were here. Coming up in the next few weeks, we've got quite a schedule for you. A week from tonight, Shawn Michael Andrews, the world's fastest hypnotists, will be talking about how to do killer demos to get more clients. And then on the 16th of April, it will be Jason Lynette. His topic is Empower Your Hypnosis Business with Live Talks. And then finally, on April 23rd, Mark Andreas and yours truly will be presenting NLP for hypnotists and hypnotherapists. And I do hope that you will join us for all of these talks. So, time to introduce our guests. We have Shawn and Sarah and Jess. Let me tell you, Sarah is the co-founder and the director of NLP Training New York and the Intelligent Hypnotist. She is an HNLP trainer and an IACT Master Hypnosis trainer. As a consulting hypnotist and trainer, she runs a thriving training center in New York City, sees private clients for transformational change. She is a published author and has produced numerous digital training products. Shawn Carson is an HNLP trainer, hypnosis trainer, and brain-based leadership trainer with a thriving private practice in New York City. He's a published author of numerous NLP and hypnosis books, including Quit, The Hypnotist's Handbook to Running Effective Smoking Sessions, Swish Pattern, Visual Squash, The Meta Pattern, The Beat Pattern, Tree of Life Coaching, and the 2014 IACT Pen and Quill award-winning book, Keeping the Brain in Mind, which he co-authored with Melissa Tiers. And I'll also mention several of those titles that I just mentioned to you were co-written with Sarah or with Jess or with both of them in various combinations. Jess Marion is a hypnosis and HNLP trainer who is passionate about teaching and creating a space where students can contribute to personally and professionally evolve. In the past, she ran a busy practice in Philadelphia. She now sees clients in New York City. Jess has authored and co-authored over 10 books and has created over 65 hours of video training, including deep trance identification and Erickson and beyond. And Jess's trainings are fun, dynamic, and highly interactive. Linda Otto wondered if I'd be able to keep up with the three of you, and see, I did that almost in one breath. So welcome, Shawn and Sarah and Jess. It's good to have you on the call tonight.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. And
Great to be here.
thank you, Bob and Linda and everybody. Glad to be here.
Well, I've got a question that, I had some questions that I thought about in advance, but I have one that I just want to throw in here because I mentioned it about Sarah specifically. And so, Sarah, I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot, but you are the Intelligent Hypnotist. So what is the Intelligent Hypnotist about?
Well, the Intelligent Hypnotist is the name of our business. And really, when we were forming our business, we decided to do a little bit of inner work and also make, create who would be our perfect student. And during our talking, we came up with the idea of we want somebody who's intelligent, who's really smart, who's absolutely dedicated to learning even more about hypnosis. And this word, somebody who's like an intelligent hypnotist, kept coming up. And suddenly we said, you know what? This should be the name of our new business. So really, this is where it came from. We want to attract people who really want to learn even more about hypnosis and not have just taken one class on hypnosis and think, that's it, I'm done. This is the person who continues to learn, who wants to know the neuroscience behind things, who wants to apply the latest and greatest. So that's the Intelligent Hypnotist.
Well, that's lovely. You know, I really appreciate it because there's so many, you know, I run into people, at least from time to time, who they hear that I've got a class going or something, and a real point that I have to make with them or that I have to respond to often when people call or talk to me is they're wanting to know why it is that they should take my class since they've already been certified. You know, and it's like, and maybe that was years ago even, you know? So, yeah. So I really love this idea of continual learning. And speaking of continual learning, in this particular case, we're talking about the Heart of Ericksonian Hypnosis with you tonight. Why should hypnotists and hypnotherapists learn the Ericksonian approach? Who wants to start us off with that?
I'll jump in. They should learn it first because it's fun. That is my sole motivation to learn anything is it fun? But the second reason, because I know there's a lot of hypnotists who are like, well, what is this going to do for my practice? The reason why we should learn Ericksonian hypnosis is that not every client is the same. Every client has their own meta programs, their unconscious neural drivers that determine how they filter information. And Ericksonian hypnosis appeals to a very specific type of client. A client who tends to be more internally framed, meaning they want to have their own experience. They don't want the hypnotist to tell them directly what to do. They want to have a space where they can explore their unconscious and find their own resources, but they don't necessarily need structure either. So they want options, and they want to do their own inner work. So when we understand that clients are going to fit, some clients are going to fit into this category, there's other categories as well, Ericksonian hypnosis is going to meet this need. And also, on the hypnotist side, my original background was Ericksonian hypnosis. That's what I originally trained in, well before I did anything with direct hypnosis or NLP or anything else. And some hypnotists are going to have the preference for this type of work, where you set the stage and you allow the client's inner resources to come out and create change. I like to think of this in terms of what Steve Gilligan talks about in terms of personal evolution, in that our job is to facilitate a space in which the client's inner creativity and inner skill sets can come out and help them to take the next step forward. Because really, in my worldview, the client knows a hell of a lot more about their problem and the solution than we could possibly know as hypnotists. So learning Ericksonian hypnosis is going to give you more tools, more skills, and it may just change how you view our hypnosis work.
Oh my gosh, you might change people's views.
I know, right?
This would be really dangerous. So listen, what do you think the biggest challenge is for people when they're learning the Ericksonian approach?
I think it really depends where they've come from and what their previous experience is. If they have come from the more classical, perhaps direct hypnosis, using scripts, there may be a little bit more of a challenge with that, because most of the Ericksonian languaging is very different from the direct languaging. So there's a shift there. And also the Ericksonian style that we teach is not scripted. So that might be a step forward for some people.
Okay.
I would add to this as well that what I've experienced from students learning Ericksonian hypnosis is one of two things happens. Either, well, for those who have roadblocks, and people just fly through and it's great. So I guess it's one of three. But the first difficulty some students have is they've learned about Milton model languaging from their NLP prac or their other hypnosis training, and they get tied up in, oh, is this a double bind, or oh, did I use the right generalization or the right metaphor? And it becomes very cognitive. It doesn't flow. So that's struggle number one, is to get out of that mindset where it's I have to do Ericksonian hypnosis and allow it to be more natural and to flow. The second difficulty is that, and this comes from the Ericksonian, so I have to apologize if there are any pure Ericksonians listening, is that I talked about some clients being options-based and internally framed. However, Erickson himself was not afraid to be direct. Erickson used every skill that he had to help clients get the change. And what I've seen in terms of the trends in some of Ericksonian hypnosis, it's to be so painfully indirect sometimes.
Yeah.
That the client's like, so for me, Ericksonian hypnosis is about having flexibility, that you can move through different modalities. It's not so artfully indirect that the client has no clue what's going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to shift.
So,
add anything, Shawn? Or? Okay.
So a client might come away from a session like that saying, gosh, I don't really know what it was about, but it must have been really important stuff, because it certainly was complicated.
Maybe yes and maybe no. Here's the difficulty, because if a client comes in and they have a certain expectation about what hypnosis is, and they're coming to see us as a hypnotist versus as a coach, if we don't meet that expectation at some point in the trance work, the risk is they're going to come out of the session and say, I don't know what happened. That must have not have been hypnosis, so I must not have changed. So we need to be able to have the flexibility, as Erickson did, to meet the client where they're at, and at some point to meet those expectations.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So there's so many things that, my experience is that the Ericksonian hypnosis, when it's a small piece of a larger training, is often either really incomplete, or as you mentioned, it focuses on some things with such incredible complexity that people are more concerned about what's the name of this language pattern that I'm generating, et cetera, et cetera. It's certainly nice to know that it isn't like that, and it doesn't need to be so painstaking. Milton Erickson, by the way, wasn't an Ericksonian hypnotist, rather, as far as we can tell. So, what's the most important lesson? Because you've really studied Erickson, and what's the most important lesson that you would say that you've learned from Erickson?
For me personally, the most important lesson in terms of client change work is this idea that any problem that a client can possibly come in with, at the heart of that problem, the core of that problem, is that they've lost rapport with their own unconscious mind. If you think about any therapeutic change that a client asks for, it's because they've lost rapport with some part of themselves. They've created a part for that problem, and they've lost rapport with it. Because somebody who's in complete rapport with your unconscious mind, you're going to be congruent the entire time. So it's not going to be a problem. So for me, that was the biggest shift, because then it means any problem that comes in, I know that at some point, if I leverage this idea of rebuilding a strong relationship with the unconscious, that no matter what, the problem is going to shift. And everything else that we do helps to support rebuilding that relationship.
Nice.
I think I would agree. I would absolutely agree. That's the biggest takeaway for me as well.
Great. Yeah.
So
tell me about the course itself. What's it going to look like? What's included? Who should take it, and what's really included in it?
So who should take it is everybody. Anybody who is interested in Ericksonian hypnosis beyond learning language patterns, beyond having step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. This course is actually the culmination of my extensive work of deep trance identification with Erickson. It's somewhat comes out of the course that I taught online last year, a big 22-week course or whatever it was. And the big important emphasis for us is that when people attend this course, that at the end of the course, they walk out with the internal landscape that is similar to something that Erickson had. It's going to be different because we're all different. Mm-hmm. However, the idea that, first of all, Nothing that the client does is ever wrong. You can utilize everything. And this isn't just like a cognitive understanding, because lots of people know it on the surface. But I mean to know it in the core of who you are, that no matter what the client brings, you can work with it. Next, to know that anything is hypnotic. So this is along the same lines of utilization. And also to automatically see the client as infinitely resourceful. For me, the real magic of what Milton did was not in the techniques. It was in his ability to create a sacred space, if you will, in which magic could happen. If you watch as an observer, and I've seen a lot of Erickson footage over the years, as a casual observer, some of the stuff, let's be honest, is downright weird. And you kind of scratch your head and go, how does that work? And that's because as the observer, we're missing this component, and it's the relationship. It's the dynamic between the hypnotist and the client. So this course is really designed around installing the inner landscapes, the inner beliefs that allow you to be masterful at hypnosis. And being masterful at Ericksonian hypnosis also means that you're going to be masterful at whatever other hypnotic discipline you happen to utilize, because Erickson was. He had no problem using direct suggestion quite often. So to come into this course, we're going to be utilizing a lot of deep trance identification techniques. This is about installing beliefs, about installing an archetype, and getting in touch with your own values around why you're doing this work. So you'll get skills in terms of how to create an atmosphere, a relationship in which hypnosis naturally and automatically occurs. In fact, it becomes irresistible. And this course is also designed to be on the transformative side for the hypnotist as well. So that's the course in the nutshell.
Yeah. Well, that's lovely. You know, I really like what you said about installing the inner landscapes. This is just a phrase that certainly got my attention. If I might just offer you a little plug, when Jess did that course that she mentioned, it was an online course, and it was about 22 weeks. Yeah. I don't remember exactly how many. I wasn't at all of them, I'm afraid, but I went to as many of them as I could, and saw a bunch of them later as well. And I thought it was just a brilliant idea, this notion of moving into this Ericksonian position by using deep trance identification in order to do it. And quite frankly, I really had no experience of anybody ever having done it quite that way before. And I thought it was just a brilliant idea. I like the idea that somebody can go to your class and just because of the word installing again, I just have to emphasize that word because it's almost like if we could just stop in and have a chip put in, that would be the way to go. So I'm assuming that as you say that what you're talking about is there will be a lot of exercises and maybe, if you'll pardon the expression, closed eye processes, something like that. Is that right?
Yes, the class is highly experiential. This class, our framework is we use hypnosis to teach hypnosis, regardless of what the hypnotic content is. So you can expect more of the same in this course. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, the installation, this comes out of the deep trance identification processes. And the reason why we're teaching this course, this is actually how I learned hypnosis. I learned it through DTI. And the very first time I went to go do a live hypnosis induction, the first time it was an absolute disaster. Like, it was a brilliant crash and burn. It was so good. Mm-hmm. And then I had to decide, okay, well, I could either run away and never do this again, or I know Erickson. Why not do it as Erickson? So I intuitively DTI'd, and everything changed in terms of how I did hypnosis in that training. And I carried that on. And I still, from time to time, if there are certain skills that I want to sharpen, I will still utilize the deep trance identification. And maybe, Shawn, you want to talk a little bit about deep trance identification as installation?
Sure. So deep trance identification, as you may or may not know, is a process whereby you take on aspects of another person's personality, skills, characteristics, values, beliefs, etc. Essentially by stepping into them once you've got an understanding of their background in terms of events in their life that shaped those things, shaped their personality, shaped their beliefs, shaped their values, shaped their skill set. So by going into their life and stepping into those events in their lives, you too can pick up those skills. We always talk about going beyond DTI in the sense that we don't want anyone to be Milton Erickson, because Milton Erickson is Milton Erickson. However, by taking on the experience of Milton Erickson and stepping through that, you can become your own better self, your own more expert self in the realm of change work or the Ericksonian mindset.
Mm-hmm. What would Milton do is the question.
Yes, it's not really a question, because once you step into Milton, you don't need to ask the question. I'm sure Milton Erickson never said, what would Milton Erickson do?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So once you DTI with Milton Erickson, you know what Milton would do because you are Milton at that point.
Nice. And by the way, again, I want to mention the book that you've written, that great, that lovely book for those of you right here, Deep Trance Identification. You can see on your screen by Sean Carson and Jess Marion with John Overdurf, and a rather brilliant foreword in the book as well. I think it's one, seriously, I've never seen anything like it. And you know, the information about deep trance identification prior to that book, there was a little bit here, a little bit there. Gilligan had done some things and described a couple of exercises. I experimented a little bit with some stuff, but there wasn't really anything that compares to this. And it is just chock full of exercises. So I hope, by the way, that this is going to be on your book table at IACT-IMDHA as well. And I know that it's available through Amazon for anybody that may not be there. Really good, really good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome.
Yeah, and the foreword was brilliant.
Oh,
that's the best part of the book. Just buy it for the foreword alone.
Well, I did deep trance identification with Aldous Huxley in order to write it. And this is the notion of deep trance identification, by the way. You know, we're talking about Milton Erickson and the Heart of Ericksonian Hypnosis here, and that's why the subject came up. But of course, you know, you can do deep trance identification with any body, and even with imaginary figures, etc. So it just becomes yet another source of information.
Yeah, and we use it. I mean, I use it extensively with all sorts of people. I spend my life doing deep trance identifications, to be honest. I'm never myself. I've forgotten. Who am I?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I wonder, so I think I've got a pretty good sense of this. I'm wondering, first of all, if there's anything else that you can tell me about your training generally. What is the training experience like with you guys, as opposed to what people have seen and done everywhere else?
Okay, so I can't do it comparatively to other people, just because. However, our training experience, as I mentioned, we use hypnosis to teach hypnosis. We are strong believers in the idea of state-dependent learning. So any skill that you want, you wrap it in the state that you need to access in the environment in which you're going to use those skills. For example, the ideal state for a hypnotist doing hypnosis is going to be trance at some point. So we're going to wrap a lot of learnings into that state. Our trainings are fun, interactive, transformative. We are definitely not trainers who will sit and read a manual or anything like that. So come to this training if you want to get hands-on experience, if you're ready to experiment and to jump into exercises and to have your own trance formation.
So we would say the key to going on a training is learning how to do something. It's not learning information. You can get it from a book or from a video, from YouTube. So it's learning how to actually do something, which means doing an exercise, getting experience of the doing, not just the information. So the trainings are built around what are the exercises which the students need to go through to have the skill set at the end of the course. So it's all built around that. There'll be an exercise, and then we ask ourselves, why is this exercise important? Why is this skill important? How can we impart that sense of importance to the student so they're motivated to do that exercise, and then what do they actually need to know to go through the exercise, and then what questions and experiences do they have at the end to share or to answer. So it's all built around the experiential exercises.
Nice. Yeah. So really training as opposed to teaching about, I think is the way that I think about it. By the way, when I did my original NLP training, I was very fortunate to be involved with an organization that had multiple trainers, and so I think through the course of my practitioner training, there were 9 trainers involved before we were finished. One of the things that I really appreciate about what you are doing is rather than just one guy, standing in front of the room with one position or understanding, is because there are 3 of you, you bring multiple perspectives into the equation, and that's just really a important thing.
Yes, and although we do have a style in our sort of school, or like a school style, we all have very different approaches to transfer. So some of us have more of a step-by-step approach. Some of us are more free and easy with our techniques. That would be me. So we do have very different styles.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll tell you what would be a good thing to do now is I'm going to give people an opportunity to ask questions. And again, because some folks are new on the call and they don't quite know how this works, we can't just open up the microphones. What that does is it just gives us a great amount of feedback, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. So there are a couple of ways that you can let us know that you have a question. At the bottom of your screen, those of you that are on your computers, at the bottom of your screen, you can see a place that says participants. And if you click on that, it may only pop up when your mouse is down there, by the way, but there should be a menu that has the word participants in it. When you click on that, there will be a list of all the people that are participating in this call. And at the bottom of that list, you will see in blue the words raise hand. And so if you click on raise hand, then I'll know that you have a question to ask. And another way for you to ask a question, just because we love to give you choices, is also down there in that bottom, there's a chat window that you can open. So if you click on chat and open the chat window, you can just type in that chat window, I have a question, and then I'll know, and I will open up your microphone and give you an opportunity to ask it. And in the meantime, I'm just going to keep the conversation going here with my buds from New York. This is you've been teaching. Has this class been something that you've taught before, or is this? I know Jess did the course that she mentioned earlier. Is this a new thing for you guys, or something you've done?
Actually, an extension of. I did a 2-hour workshop at HypnoThoughts Live last year, and people really loved it, and thought, why not build it out? Why not make it a more complete system than a 2-hour taster? So that's where this day course came from. So it's expanded. There's more activities, more experiences wrapped up into it to create more of that inner field, that inner landscape.
Also, our training in general, we introduce the Ericksonian approach, the classical approach, the NLP recipe approach, as well as the HNLP conversational approach. So it's something which is built in probably like a quarter of our general courses as well.
Okay. Now I'm going to be a devil's advocate for a minute here. And one of the questions that we had asked earlier, or the topic that certainly came up, was the types of clients that the Ericksonian approach is ideal for. Jess had a few things to say about that. I'm kind of curious to ask you the opposite question of that. And that is there anybody that you wouldn't use an Ericksonian approach for?
Yes.
Before we do that, just there is a person who wants to ask a question, just so that you...
Yeah, I actually did see that. So,
all right. Awesome.
So the system that we use, and Shawn came up with this, and it's absolutely brilliant, is that we have we have 4 quadrants of hypnosis. We have the classical hypnosis, we have the NLP recipe approach, we have the Ericksonian approach, and we have the HNLP conversational approach. And the quadrants are based on 2 meta programs. They're based on options, procedures, and internal-external frame. frame of reference. Someone who is externally framed, meaning they're looking for the hypnotist to tell them what to do, and they want a step-by-step process, the Ericksonian approach is not going to be the ideal first approach. In that case, you want a classical hypnosis, direct suggestion. The hypnotist is the authority, because that's what the client needs in that setting. Versus someone who likes step-by-step approaches, but they're more internally framed, meaning they want to take a step and see if it fits for them. Does it feel right? Yes or no. This is the NLP approach. The HNLP approach is going to be externally framed options. So the hypnotist or coach definitely is leading the process. However, the client can, whatever the client brings up, the client is bringing the material to work with within the session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we profile our clients, and my background, as I said, was Ericksonian hypnosis. So I lean more towards that, meaning that I might do something Ericksonian in sessions, even if somebody's in a different quadrant. However, this is about meeting the client where they're at based on their unconscious drives. It's meeting that expectation. Because a lot of clients, let's be honest, just want to be told what to do with direct suggestion.
Certainly Milton Erickson knew that, and at the appropriate time he would use that approach, that very direct approach. That's
what I was going to say. Curiously, it occurs to me that a part of the Ericksonian approach is knowing when not to use the Ericksonian approach. Yes. Or in other words, to utilize whatever it is that's presented. I do need to interrupt, and I want to thank you, Judy, for hanging out so long and waiting. I have just lowered your hand, and you are. Oops! Wait a minute. There you are. I am about to unmute you. Oh, I think you're on the telephone. You said. So if you will dial *9 on your phone, Judy, then I'll be able to find you, because all I've got are phone numbers for that, and then I can open up a line for you to talk. So just press *9 and I'm watching for you here.
We're rooting for you, Judy.
Judy. Who is it, Judy from New Jersey?
It's Judy Cosentino.
It might be. I can't remember Judy's last name.
Are you out here, Judy?
Maybe Judy could type her question in.
She could do that. That would be another option, except that she's asking how she can participate on the phone.
I understand.
So she must be both on the phone and on her PC.
I am options-based. Yes, I clicked *9. But
I've just found her now.
Okay.
I believe this is you. Are you there, Judy?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, Judy.
Judy from New Jersey.
Yay!
Okay, so I took Jess, Shawn's, and Sharon's class in Vegas last year, and it was a game changer for me. I mean, just 2 days of experiencing DTI was just like amazing. So I do have a question for you, and then I'm going to tell you a quick little funny story. I have a client who I did the DTI with, the future DTI, and she came back and she said, I didn't notice any change. I don't feel anything. So, then what do you do? And I told her it's a progress. It's not like a overnight changer. So what do I do when someone says to me, well, I don't feel anything, nothing's changed?
So a couple of things. The future self DTI, you can think of this as being a component of a larger change session. So I'll do this at the beginning of a session, but it's not the only intervention that I'm going to do. The second component to this is no problem can stay the same. Don't let them hypnotize you into believing it, because most people their unconscious program is to sort for sameness. This is another meta program, sameness, difference. And when people are caught up in a problem, they're used to looking outside and feeling their bodies and confirming the problem. So when they've had this problem, they've looked around and gone, yep, have it, still the same, still the same, still the same. However, anytime you introduce new information into a problem, because of reconsolidation, it does change. So a part of our job is to begin to transition the client into looking for the differences. Some changes you blow out in a single session. Other changes, you'll take a step, then it's another step in another session, another step in another session. So think of the future self DTI ultimately as setting the scene and putting an attractor in that client's future that's going to pull them through everything else that you do in the change work process.
And I would say if they can see their future self and they come back and they go, well, I didn't feel a change, you should pull them away from the future self. You should say, well, that's in the future, so you're not ready for that yet, so make them want it more.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I think that might be an approach. I mean, I wasn't in the session, so I don't know exactly what took place, but if the client is saying, oh, well, I didn't really get anything from that, you say, well, that's because it's your future self, it's not your current self, and you're not there yet. If you pull it away, then it makes them more eager to get there. It makes them more invested.
Another thing to consider also is carrying on with Jess's idea that we're all changing. The problem is going to change. It can't not change. Is to directionalize your client very specifically and ask something like, what's different now? Not how feeling, how was that, what's going on. You're actually asking them very specifically, what's different now? Or notice what's different now. So you're not asking them about what's the same, what hasn't changed. You're asking them very specifically, what's different right now.
Okay. Okay. So the other thing that I want to tell you is when I took your class, and Thursday we did the DTI, which are superheroes, which is like one of the most awesome parts of the class. That night, my kids and I went to Fremont Street, and we went zip lining, Superman style. And Superman was
awesome. That's fantastic.
And when Shawn was saying, who was it, Radcliffe, that that invented it to jump in, but the kids played their instrument, in Russia while they were in it. Well, I spent a little extra time while I was in line, getting into the mind frame, so that when I was ziplining Superman style, I was all in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Rykov is the guy. That's fantastic.
So thank you very much. And, the class was awesome.
Thank you so much.
And how cool would it be, Judy, to be Milton Erickson in your sessions with your client?
On the zip line.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. That's my next step.
There you go.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Judy.
Well, all right. I'm picturing Milton Erickson in a wheelchair on a zip line.
On the zip line now.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Quite the picture.
With the Superman cape. Yeah.
So, anyone else have questions for our friends here? We've got a few more minutes left, and want to make sure you get all your questions answered so that when you go out to www.hypnoexpo2017.com, just why it is that you are signing up for this delightful workshop. By the way, and pardon me for asking, this is something that I should know, and I didn't put it on my notes. This is a 2-day program?
It's a 1-day.
It's a 1-day program, and it is on?
Friday.
On Friday, okay.
Yeah.
Great. So it is on the 19th, the weekend, Friday of the weekend.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Well then, you mentioned Rykov a minute ago, by the way. I wonder, might be if you can give us, Shawn, in a little 2 or 3 minute brief history of deep trance identification. It might be useful for people that really have no idea what we're talking about.
Sure. So it's obviously been around forever, right? If you see any kids who come out of a theater and they've just seen a Superman film or a Spider-Man film, and they are taking on the aspects of the character. It's a very natural way for children to learn. And it's been around in the theater, etc., forever. DTI is a formal process, started in Russia, I guess, in the 50s. A gentleman by the name of Rykov was working in various schools in Russia, in particular in the Conservatory of Music in Moscow. And he got the students to deep trance identify with their favorite player of the instrument, their favorite master of the instrument, whichever instrument they played. And his process was essentially to do a regression to childhood. And then as a child, because this is such a natural process for children, as a child to step into the skin of the player of their instrument. And the interesting thing about his work was that he did double blind or blind trials whereby there was a panel of judges who judged both the technical and the interpretive skills of the students before and after the process. And the students were split into two groups. One did the DTI process and one did just the relaxation process, so that there was some kind of an independent judging of the effects of DTI. And they found the DTI improved both the technical playing of the students as well as their interpretive playing. It was, I guess it was like the middle of the Cold War, and the Russians were doing all this mind control type of things, and the Americans were trying to catch up. And so they'd heard of this deep trance identification, and I guess it was Steve Gilligan who began to play with DTI with Milton Erickson, and DTI'd with Erickson and found that he knew certain things about Erickson which he couldn't possibly have known. The story being that he spoke to Bateson as Milton Erickson, and Bateson said, wow, you know things about Milton Erickson that you couldn't possibly know unless you were Milton Erickson. Mm-hmm. So it's a really kind of a spooky process in that sense, that you get such an intuitive grasp of the person that you know more about them than you possibly could. There wasn't very much out there. There's some papers of Rykov, most of which are in Russian, and there's an interview with Gilligan, which is very, very vague in a Gilligan-esque way. And there's a couple of videos on YouTube. Your video was on YouTube. John Overdurf had done some work, which we hadn't really seen, apart from he's got an MP3, which is one of the most pirated MP3s on the internet, apparently. And then Jess did a lot of DTI work with Milton Erickson. And so we started to talk to John, and we started to do a lot of experimentation and research, myself and Jess, into the process, tried a lot of different processes, taught some courses, led some students through the exercises, and then stole some stuff from John and wrote the book. And the book, as you say, I think is really the only complete treatment of DTI that's out there, as far as I know at this point.
And has a wide variety of different ways to go about it, which is I think the real beauty of it.
Yeah, I mean it's really awesome. I mean, it's transformed the way I live my life has been transformed by deep trance identification.
Cool. So I know people are going to learn, obviously, they're going to learn something about deep trance identification in your class, but it is called, after all, the Heart of Ericksonian Hypnosis. So maybe as a wrap-up question here, in the simplest of terms, what can people expect to be able to do after they have taken your course that they might not have been able to do so easily before?
So they can expect to, when they finish the course, to approach a client or have the client come into their office, and no matter what the problem is, they can feel confident that they can lead the client into change. This is fundamental. I've come across so many hypnotists who, after their hypnosis training, never see a client because they're terrified of them. I've seen on forums hypnotists who've been in practice for longer than I have, who still go, I have a client with XYZ. I don't know what to do. Oh my God. So the Heart of Ericksonian Hypnosis, because you didn't see Erickson doing that. I didn't see Erickson on the multiple forums saying I had a client with XYZ and I don't know what to do. Is they're going to walk out with the mindset to be able to work with clients regardless of what the problem is. And this is really about the hypnotist's personal transformation. This is about changing how you view hypnosis, how you work with clients, and how you understand yourself and your own hypnotic philosophy. You can think of this as an opportunity for you as the hypnotist to go inside and to begin to build inside of yourself the space, the representations that are going to lead to change. One of the things that Erickson did, and we'll be exploring this more in the class, is they talked about an inner landscape. Erickson was brilliant about this. He had an understanding of how clients were doing problems so that he could help them create solutions. In order to understand how a client creates a problem, there has to be some sort of landscape for it internally. He didn't stop there, though, because he also had included in that inner landscape the client, a representation of the client completely transformed. And not just having the change that they wanted, because that's small potatoes. As John Overdorf says, you never know how far a change will go. You just don't. And Erickson understood this, and he saw the clients beyond the change, out living life, living their dreams, having fulfillment. And here's the secret is it's not good enough to have just the representation inside of us as hypnotists, but to be able to extend it out into the space in between the hypnotist and client, so that you as the hypnotist, you're able to bring this forward and it becomes so compelling that the client follows. This is about creating a space where hypnotic magic happens. So as I mentioned before, if people are interested in a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, this is not the course for you. Mm-hmm. However, if you're interested in transformation, if you're interested in approaching hypnosis in a very different way, in which you can let go of procedures, sure, they're there if you want them, but you can let go of them. And to really deepen your own rapport, your own connection with your unconscious mind, and your connection with clients' unconscious minds, then this is the course for you.
Nice. Nicely said. Listen, I've got to tell you, I had a client with XYZ once, and XYZ is a wonderful. So I'm really.
The solution is UIX.
I really support you in that. All right. Well, it's been lovely talking with you guys. So I'm going to. I need to just make a couple of quick little closing announcements here, and then we'll say goodbye to you all. So if you'll just hang on for just a second. I just want to remind everybody that next week we are going to be talking with the world's fastest hypnotist, Shawn Michael Andrews, and same time, same channel, same login, and all of that. So do be here for that. Also, remember to get your CEUs at the website, the IACT or IMDHA website, whichever one is appropriate for you. And the download from tonight will be available either there or at www.hypnoexpo2017.com. And while you're there, be sure to register for the conference, and all the information about the conference that you need is there as well. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. And Shawn and Sarah and Jess, what I am about to do is something reckless and wild, and that is that I'm going to take everybody off of mute. So we're going to get whatever kind of noise we get when that happens. And it'll give everybody a chance to shout goodbye to you, and thank you for being with us this evening. We appreciate it. Okay, you're all unmuted. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Night, Mariella.
Take care.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.